Making Big Shifts, presented by Marketing Reboot, with your host, Josh Anderson.
Everybody to the Making Big Shifts podcast by Marketing Reboot. I'm your host, Josh Anderson, where we talk to real entrepreneurs making real decisions and the real results that follow. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Andrew Lovewell. He's the CEO of the Columbia Orthopedic Group. He's recognized as an expert in ambulatory surgery centers, private practice management, and healthcare business. So, Andrew, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to
Tell me about your history a little bit. How did you get to Columbia Orthopedic Group?
Yeah. Well, I have been with our group now about 7 years, 3 years in this role, 4 years in a prior role in our ASC. Before that, I worked for a big academic surgery department in Springfield, Illinois. And then I actually worked for MU Healthcare in town here in the hospital side in various departments for about 10 years. So been in healthcare my whole career, seen a lot of change and a lot of ups and downs, and just excited to kind of share some of that and go over all of our questions for today.
Awesome. As I was reading through your bio and getting to know you a little bit more, I mean, a lot of it over and over again I'm seeing is that you're really kind of hang your head on and kind of known for, increasing patient satisfaction, which is amazing, right? And plus also building winning teams. So when it comes to like patient satisfaction, and this can go for any type of business, right? It'd be customer satisfaction in essence. How do you go about first line getting a baseline recording of where that currently is and then improving that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, when you talk about patient satisfaction, for example, to me, it's got to start with the why behind your customer, your patient, why they're there, right? And if we can start there and work backwards and try to figure out, what somebody needs in that time, it's easier to address, right? So it's very easy to say, okay, I built a product. It's a great product. People want my product. Well, how do you know that they even want your product? Let's go back and let's make sure that we're even producing something people want. In our field, obviously, healthcare is one of those things that, depending on, obviously views and, political affiliation, all those things, is it a right? Is it a privilege? Whatever. I don't even get into any of that because it's not important to me. It's what can we do at the time of when somebody's hurt to make them better, or what can we do to get them access to somebody who's going to make them better? So I think that's, from my standpoint, I always kind of think about it from, the perspective of, if I'm the patient, what's valuable to me? And then what can we do as an organization to deliver that value to patients and then exceed expectations? So that's how we address it, from the standpoint of Columbia Orthopedic Group. Our group's been around for 60 years. So when we picture patient satisfaction, it's really building a lifetime relationship with patients to be their, preferred provider of orthopedic or musculoskeletal care. And we do that through a very simple strategy. It's just execute at all levels at all times to make sure people always leave here in a position where they're either better or more informed, or they're in a position where they feel like they got tremendous value from us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. You kind of, your lifetime customer value, of course, right there. And that could be decades for some of these people, of course.
Yeah.
Then also how you kind of hit on, it's the flow of the customer. So you're talking from customer satisfaction, your secretary, to the actual, physician, right? And how do you gauge and make sure every single chain and the link is strong?
Yeah, so we measure patient satisfaction at every level. So we send out surveys to every patient we see. We ask for patient satisfaction surveys. We track Net Promoter Score.
Right.
If you Googled our organization, you're going to find probably, 4.95 star review with almost 6,500, 7,000, reviews. And a lot of that comes from just, like I said, just executing at every level at every time. So, and we also have a lot of just non-tangible questionnaires related to, a patient's here, about, what could we have done differently or better? And I think what a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, owners, there's this kind of concept of there's a lot of pride obviously built in when you own a business or you're building something. But some of that you got to set aside and be okay, what could we do better? Because there's always something that could be improved. And if people think, I've got the perfect product or widget or service or whatever right now, yeah, you might have it right now, but you don't have it in a month, or you don't have it in 2 months. Then the evolution of the customer is going to change too. And so is their expectations. So just constantly measuring from a
Yeah.
quality standpoint, what's happening is going to be essential to make sure
Yeah.
you're really going to scale that business and be sustainable.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Can you give an example, like some of this patient satisfaction feedback that you've gotten that has caused you to make a big shift as the podcast is named after, like, and then actually
Yeah.
implemented it into wherever you've been?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll tell you one of the big things we were challenged with when I was our surgery center administrator was we did a really great job at providing surgical care to patients, but we didn't always, quite honestly, do the best job in follow-up care. So when somebody
Mhm.
had a surgery from us and they had a question after that, how easy are you to get a hold of? What's the preferred method of communication? Those types of things. So we came out with a digital engagement solution about 5 years ago. And, patients can message us via text message. They
Yeah.
can, send us a message through this app. They also get virtual interactive education. They get videos for free. They get all of this kind of breadth and depth of information. And it's concise and easy to understand. So what
Yeah.
happens, and you think about the health literacy level of the country today, it's significantly lower than any of us care to admit. But when you think about, reading a document that your doctor's office gives you, that is so lost just right out of the gate on today's generation. So like
Yeah.
if we can come up with a video or just a quick little, meme or GIF or something that we send them and we're like, hey, here's what's going on with your back pain. Here's a video about
Mhm.
stretches. Here's a video about preparing your house for, recovery. Like that goes a heck of a lot longer than here's a 10-mile long
Yeah.
document related to how you're going to recover from surgery. And then honestly, when we did that, our patient sat scores, we didn't have a lot of improvement. Honestly, we were like a
Okay.
98% patient sat, but we went to like a 99.7. So,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like a big delta, but when you're dealing with that small a margin, that's a massive delta. So
Totally.
that was a huge shift for us because quite honestly, it was one of those things where our surgeons and nurses, other staff, they didn't necessarily think that it was going to be that monumental of an improvement. And we were kind of imagining the adoption rate was going to be low on that
Right. Yeah.
just because the population we serve. But honestly, it's like 90% adoption rate. People love the
Wow, that's
videos. They
impressive. Yeah.
love the messaging component. It saves us a ton of phone calls and time
Mhm.
on the back end because it's not, I'm not calling Josh saying, hey, man, I got a question about my incision. I can just punch into this app or, look at a
Mhm.
video and it shows me like, hey, here's what your incision should look like. Here's how your bandage should look like, all those things. So it's really just layering on that fundamental thing we're talking about delivering value to the customer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kinda go down a rabbit hole we kinda alluded to there. That's a big lift to make a platform like that, right? And
Yeah.
you have to have internal buy-in. How did you and you said some people were just wondering, they did buy in, but at first they're just questioning it. How did you get them to buy in on this process?
I think it's one of those things where you just put a helmet on and you run through a wall sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm
it's like
gonna
it's
be
yeah.
honest with you, like it's not sometimes it's not always easy. And there's this saying, and I don't know who to credit it to, but doing the right thing isn't the easy thing.
Yeah.
So what we focused on during that was what does the patient want and what would alleviate a burden to us that the patient wants. And like a simple video library or text communication or some nature of that was so easy fundamentally from like a conceptual standpoint that there's no way it couldn't work. Like it
Right. Makes
was
sense.
going to work because it was easy. And
Yeah.
like if you can take the path of least resistance in some type of rollout like that, it's going to work. It's just that sometimes people don't like change, and change in
Mhm.
healthcare is a dirty word. So when we talk about changing, like for example, we changed our electronic health record in June. That was a massive lift for
It's a
our
big lift.
organization,
Yeah.
monumental shift. We jumped forward probably 20 years in technology. Everyone hair on fire day one, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. And then, now we're in 4 months or 5 months, whatever we're into it. And people are like, well, this is better than what we had. Well, yeah, it
Yeah.
is better than what we had, but 5 months ago, we're ready to,
Yeah, yeah.
throw me off the roof. So like, it's
Nobody wants you touching their EHR, that's for sure, right?
that's right. Heck yeah, fastest way to
That's
make people
awesome.
mad. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and going back to the education platform, like that was a safe bet relatively, right? Because you knew it would make an impact, right? But it was gonna be a big lift, but it was a safe bet, and you took the bet, and it worked out.
for
Same with the
sure.
EHR. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And then, so like, I want to go into the other aspect that you're also, hang your hat on, and that's building a winning culture, building winning teams. Where does that start? I know it starts with leadership, of course, right? But in terms of, let's go to the fundamental aspect of it, recruiting and hiring. What do you guys look for? What is your playbook for that?
Yeah, I think, for us from a recruiting, retention, hiring standpoint, like we're hiring in most of our roles. Obviously, there's certain roles that we have a higher turnover in, and it's we just got to get somebody in seat to check people in, check people out, those
Yeah.
things. Not saying that it's not important, because it's super important. In our leadership roles or executive level roles, we're hiring people who are culture fit and a team fit just as much as a competent individual,
Hmm.
because I think I can train somebody how to read a P&L statement, and train somebody how to track KPIs related to the revenue cycle. I
Yep.
can do those things and people can learn those things, but are they going to work in tandem with the rest of our team, our physicians, to build on the goal is really the question. What are your accolades on your CV or resume? It's going to be, how do you present and carry yourself? How do you handle difficult situations? What's your communication style like? All those things are going to play a bigger factor to me than they're going to be what's listed on your resume, or, did you go to Mizzou or not, or anything like
Yeah.
that. Like I'm going to care a heck of a lot. You carry yourself when you're presented to your peers or to subordinates or anything like that. And if there's not, a level of humility and accountability that exists, then it's probably not a good fit. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's
Right.
totally okay for people to be on or off the bus, but like it's one of those options. Like you got to be on and engaged and ready to go with us, because we're not slowing down, because nothing in
Yeah.
the world slows down. It's constant evolution, constant movement, constant change. Like we're trying to always get better, and having somebody with the mindset of just being part of a team, something bigger than themselves, and,
Yeah.
and contributing to that team is going to be the recipe, to win.
For sure. And then sometimes people, they might start out as a great fit, but they outgrow it, or the company outgrows them, right? And you have to coach them up or coach them out.
Sure.
What kind of, I don't know, I hate the word performance reviews, but what kind of cadence do you guys use to make sure we're all on the
Yeah.
same page?
I think I don't like the word performance reviews either, because like if I'm having to sit down only once a year and review your
Yeah.
performance, I'm failing you and
Yeah.
you're failing me. So like there's a lot more that goes into it than that. And I think that's like I don't want to use the word like old school, but that's a very dated
Totally.
method of looking at, performance. So I think if you're not closing the loop and having a cadence, with your upline or vice versa, at least once a week, there's a problem.
Hmm.
I think for me, it's going to be radical transparency is super important to me. I want people to know where they stand, and I want to know where I stand at all times, because if I'm screwing something up and I don't know about it, then I'll keep screwing it up. So, and that's vice versa, right? Like if I have, direct reports in the organization and they're like, "Hey, I got a problem when you do this." Like, okay, great. I won't do it anymore. Or I do that because of this. Like, and I think some people, you just got to explain the why behind, the existence of policies, procedures, rules. Some things are non-negotiable. And there are some things where you're like, all right, this is an area where we can bend on this because it doesn't contribute to an ROI or doesn't impact a patient or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
so why do we do it? Right. And like, I like having, I'll give you an example. We've got people in our organization who want to ask why and want to question something, right?
Hmm.
And so you're like, how can you work with somebody like that? Well, damn, I love that, because, if they're going to ask why about something so little, they're definitely going to ask why about something so big. So,
Yeah.
let's be prepared and let's have an answer for it. And if it's not a good answer, then really why? Why are we doing it?
Yep.
So,
That's good.
if
Yep.
that's something we can just cut out of the production line or whatever, like cut it out, get rid of it
Hmm.
and move on, because I don't want people to do unnecessary stuff like that. That to me is just a killer.
Yeah.
You're sitting there like, okay, I do this because my manager told me to do that. Why? Why are you doing that? Well, that's
Exactly.
what we've always done. Okay, well, what does it impact? Well, I don't really know. I
Hmm.
just do it. Can we stop and see what happens? And I
Exactly.
think a lot of people are scared to do that, to be honest with you. They're scared to like
It's always
stop.
been done.
Yeah, they're scared to stop a process or stop something because it's always been done. And it's like, well, should we? Should we
Hmm.
be doing like, I don't know. I think questioning the status quo is probably something I'm pretty annoying at. So I just expect people to do it to me too. And like, I'm sure that that's one of those things where, except for my kids, that man, that's a whole different thing. But
Yeah.
I think that it's one of those things where like, if people are asking questions, you're doing the right thing.
I think that's great. Like, like it's the objectivity that those people bring, especially new hires. I love when new hires ask why, or like me as a marketing advisor, I come in and I have an outside perspective, right? And that's the best time to ask that why
Yeah.
and make somebody explain why, because to your point, it could be like, because Jim that was here 10 years ago set it up like this. Well, Jim's
Right.
been gone 10 years. Why are we doing it like this? So I think that's a brilliant point for sure. Makes people really get to the heart of why you're doing things.
Well, it also leaves people more invested when you're listening to the feedback that they're providing. Like, so this is a mistake I think that people make is they'll take a culture survey or an employee feedback survey and they're like, thanks for the feedback, trash can, like
That's even worse than
if
not doing it, right?
you ask for feedback, you got to go do something now.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really tough too. And in some of the economic environments we work in, where some people are like, well, I think I should be paid $1 million. Well, shoot, no, me too. Like that's
Mhm.
not going to happen. But let's look at the realistic ideas that people come up with that live in reality, and let's talk about those. Because no matter what you get on a survey, there's always going to be what I would consider to be kind of the middle crop of ideas that you can actually do something with. There's going to be these radical ideas, that are just so in pie in the sky where you're like, we're probably not ready for that, or that's just
Yeah.
not possible. And then
Yep.
there's going to be the negative feedback, right? Where it's just like, all right, that's non-productive,
Always. Yeah.
like, so you're looking for that middle portion of idea generation where you can go, all right, let's roll with this. Like, this is
Mhm.
something legitimate we can go with.
Yeah.
So
I think that's great.
I very much appreciate that. I would say I've worked for organizations where you're definitely a cog in a big wheel or a
Mhm.
big machine. And if you fill out a survey like that, you're not gonna get any feedback and you're not gonna get any type of closure to what your thoughts are. And they're certainly not going to be implemented. I think, we're smaller, so it's a lot easier for people to have ownership in that and what they do. That's good and bad, right? Because some people they can be, depending on, the day or the person, they can be so upset about a certain given situation that it is negative. And then you've got to address that through a different
Yeah.
mechanism. So it's like, there's pros and cons to everything we do, right?
Yeah. 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 You got to weigh them out for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you guys sound like you have a lot of like, I mean, you do, you truly have great reviews, 4.9 out of 5 out of, 70 thousands of reviews, right? Plus a great NPS score. Obviously you're taking care of your patients. So the referrals and word of mouth is a
Yeah.
great, client source. What else do you guys do like from a marketing standpoint to bring new clients in?
Yeah. So we do a lot of, it sounds really old school, but we do a lot of postcard campaigns with people.
Those direct mailers.
Mailers. We do a predictive AI mailer that we send out to people. It's very targeted based on what that person searched and those things. It sounds
Yeah.
sounds very Big Brotherish, but like that data's out there. It exists, and if anybody who thinks that they're hiding their data, that's wrong. So we do that, and then we do a lot of external partnerships with schools or local colleges or stuff like that to make sure that athletes have,
Oh yeah.
us as an available resource. I don't know. I would deem that as marketing. I think I would deem that as more sponsorship, advertising stuff. And then we do a lot of radio and, social
Yeah.
media and, targeted stuff like that. So I'll tell you overall, like our marketing spend or budget is one of those things that's almost a forgotten line item sometimes because we don't do a lot of it in mass because of a 60-year history and tradition
Hmm.
and like rich care that we provide to
Yeah.
patients, that word of mouth is always going to outperform marketing from what we've seen.
Yeah.
And I could be completely wrong in that, but if one person has a bad experience, they're going to tell 100 people, right? If
Oh
if
yeah.
one person has a great experience, they're going to tell 10. So like that's why I think you just constantly focusing on like every patient's different, every patient's unique, and us providing that highest level of service to each individual who walks in. You never know who they're going to tell, and
Mhm.
you never know who they know or anything like that. So I think just constantly putting your best foot forward and being on stage is
Yeah.
extremely important.
Yeah, referral word of mouth has got to be almost for any business the best, of course, right? Because you're going to trust your neighbor versus the display ads you saw on Google.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense. And especially now with this direct mailers, that's making a massive comeback. It always was there too, but like everybody has email fatigue, right? Nobody, just so many emails from junks. Direct mailers is huge. So what are you guys excited about coming up? I know the future of healthcare, there's a lot going on out there and everything, but what are you guys excited about at Columbia Orthopedic Group?
Yeah, I think, you used the word excitement. I think there's also a level of like gloom and doom in medicine. It seems like sometimes because, the Medicare fee schedule just got approved last week and, it didn't go the way I think that a lot of specialists thought it was going to go. And, I look for that to be challenged. I'd tell you from like a excitement standpoint, we're in the middle of a construction project right now. We're building the region's only, integrated pain center into our orthopedic practice. So we had a space that was attached to our surgery center that we are remodeling. We totally gutted it, building a state-of-the-art pain management interventional pain suite down there. So we'll have 4 interventional pain suites, standalone staff that's dedicated only to, high level attention to pain management. It's a growing, service line or epidemic in our market, especially. I think what happens there is those people just need a resource, and we want to be the resource for them. And we want to be able to be fully integrated where we can offer everything they need. So that's coming. We look to open that in March of next year. So
okay, nice.
On that. Past that, I think we've got an orthopedic urgent care that continues to deliver extreme value and access for patients. So it's a walk-in clinic. It's not billed like an emergency room or no facility fees or anything crazy like that. So no massive upcharge. So it just delivers extreme value to patients. They get access to experts right away who can go, okay, Josh, this is what's going on with your knee. Let's get you in with the doctor tomorrow or the next day. So it just provides another layer of value to patients.
Yeah.
And then, past that, just on a regular basis, like we've got every service virtually a patient would need in one fully integrated facility. So we've got therapy and lab and DME and pharmacy, a surgery center, a clinic, on our own telehealth and virtual care platform now. We've got every vertical where we can kind of deliver something that very few people in the country can, where patients don't have to worry or run around town to try to get to all these services. It's like, you come here, we'll take care of it. We got everything right here. We'll make this as easy as possible for you. So I think that's just it's a constant excitement, right? Because like when people call us and see us, they're like, holy crap, I never realized what a well-oiled machine this was. And you're like,
changing lives. Yeah.
It's right here, like you never need to go anywhere else. And it works, right? Like once people are here, they very rarely leave. And I think we're just continuing to, be excited about perfecting our process and, evolve.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect full circle, right? It comes back to patient satisfaction, and that's truly what you're providing and patient value there, right? So that's amazing. So if people are interested in learning more about Columbia Orthopedic Group, where can they go? What's the website for that?
That's ColumbiaOrthoGroup.com.
Okay. You
can look us up on Instagram and Facebook as well. We've got a LinkedIn page. It's more of our professional side of things we do, but our website, we're constantly adding blogs and content and stuff like that to it. We make it as easy as possible on the website. You go to the website, it's got a person and you're like, where are you hurting? And you just click where you're hurting and boom, like you can find the doctors and make an appointment right there. So we're trying to just be as available as possible to people because I think everybody, like you said earlier with the emails, I think people they're so busy and people are getting fatigued by all of the extra stuff in their life. Like if we can make it seamless and easy to be your provider, we're going to do it because there's no reason not to.
Love it. Love it. That's a good way to wrap up, Andrew. Right? Thank you very much for being on the podcast today. This has been really insightful.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, guys. And thanks for listening to Making Big Shifts by Marketing Reboot, where we help business leaders focus on what actually matters. Subscribe to hear more stories and hard-won lessons, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Making Big Shifts. Like, share, and follow for more. Join us next time on Making Big Shifts, presented by Marketing Reboot,